Welcome back. We're in the city. We just had some tacos, some good tacos.
Yep, what was the name of that place?
It was called Los Tacos, literally.
Los Tacos,
Yeah.
#1.
Yes, number one. And what we had was chicken tacos with cilantro, onions, and of course guacamole.
Right.
It was like so delicious, so
Yeah.
good, so good.
And honestly, they kind of don't give you like a big serving. They only give you like a very small serving. So that we both got 3, and it wasn't enough, but it was just enough.
It was like this small, literally.
It was enough to get us full, but it was enough, just to keep us kind of held down for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours or so. Yeah.
It was.
But what we wanted to talk about was how we first met. So this is a very funny story, and I like to tell it because a lot of people ask me about it. They see our relationship now, and they just kind of think that everything was always the way that it is now. And for some reason, I don't know why people think that. But yeah, you guys are good. So one thing that I wanted to say was, for the first time that I seen her, there was no such thing as love at first sight for me. I didn't believe in any of that. And it's not necessarily what happened, because I'm the type of person to where if I see someone, then I need to know a lot about them. I want to know like every single detail possible. I want to know what their favorite hobbies are.
Oh yeah, he was like that. Yeah.
I want to know what their moods are like during the day, and pretty much I just like to know a good deal about the person before interacting with them on a deep psychological, emotional, spiritual level. And I feel like that's what a lot of people mistake nowadays in terms of relationships. They go into the relationship not necessarily knowing the person, and then expecting that person to be something that they kind of wanted them to be the whole entire time. And we obviously know that usually turns out to be a disaster.
Always.
Because your expectations of a person most of the time is not the reality of who they actually are. And what I've come to realize is that the way that I've always looked at relationships is the way that a lot of people would want to look at relationships. So I do feel somewhat qualified to talk about things like this, just because I've always had that mindset, even from a very young age. So I'm gonna start by saying this: we met in high school, and everybody, oh, the whole high school sweetheart, yeah, but it wasn't all rose petals and peppercorn flakes and none of that.
Snowflakes.
Yeah, whatever.
Petals.
It wasn't like it wasn't heaven.
It wasn't.
What it was work. It was time. It was effort. It was consistency. It was building myself up, breaking myself down, and same thing for her. Like getting to know someone on that level, it requires a lot of work. So, getting into the traumas psychologically, how was this person on a mental level? What did they go through? Like all sorts of stuff like that. And I'm not about to tell my life story. But what I will do is I'll describe the very first time that I seen her. So this was like the deep reaction that we had at first was just to speak to each other normally. And she was like by the bus, and I recognized her because she was in my school, of course. And then we had these very short conversations just about school, and obviously nothing like deep yet. So we ended up having detention together.
Typical story.
I mean, I wasn't that type of kid to get in trouble a lot, so I knew it had to be
I was a troublemaker, so I was in detention left and right almost all the time.
They don't gotta know that.
But I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, we're both not perfect. We have things that we have to work on.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't worry about it. She's already worked on that. But anyway, after getting to know her as a friend, there were certain points to where we would talk, and then I would feel like we both have something to gain every time that we had an encounter with each other. So that's how we ended up spending more time together. That's how we ended up spending, conversations together. And like some of my friends even started to notice, like, oh, so you gonna go with her? And then it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And like I'm not doing anything. I'm not abandoning you guys. I just want to talk more with her for now. And so the more that I did that, the more that I realized, okay, she's a pretty cool, down-to-earth person. And at first I started thinking to myself, like, what if this ends up to be a disaster? Because that's just the way that I think.
I mean, that's the way I think.
I always
like
have precautions. I always want to think, ahead of certain things. Like, I don't want to have deer in the headlight syndrome where I'm just constantly like getting enamored with certain things and certain problems start coming up and just spiking my emotional levels back and forth. I want to be at the height of everything that's going to go on for the future. Like, I want to be ahead of what's going to happen. So certain problems would come up to where we were very, hold on one second.
Like I said, we're in the city, so Times Square, it's chaotic over here.
Yeah, so certain problems would come up, like, so we spending all this time with each other, but we're not necessarily together. And that, for me, it was just like, I'm not just gonna have you as like a buddy.
Best friend.
No.
Best friend.
Buddy, as in like, you're more than just a friend, but you're not like with the person. You're not a partner yet.
Best friend.
I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
All right.
So what I did want to do was address the whole thing. I was like, okay, so what is this? What are we? Like, when people say that, what are we?
Best friends.
I wanted to, yeah.
I remember saying that that day. We're best friends.
Yeah, best friends.
Yeah.
Right. But more than that. It was more than that. I mean, but when's the last time you heard best friends like kissing and touching?
Whoa. Whoa.
Right.
Whoa.
So anyway.
No, I'm talking about before all of that.
Oh, you see?
Before all of that, when we was denying to everybody, oh, nah, it's just a friend,
Yeah, so there was the denial phase.
Yeah.
And there was also the phase where we started to get more involved with each other. And then we started to see little activities like that as just normal things that we do together. So it wasn't even like we've established a partnership or relationship. It was more so like, no, this is normal, this is what we do. So then we had to establish it. But at the same time, we were still kind of hiding it with everybody else. Because we didn't necessarily know if we wanted to take it to that level yet. And everybody was just like, oh, these two are always around together.
Always together.
Always playing with each other. So what's the deal? And first of all, mind your business.
Yo,
Second of
even
all,
the teachers was asking.
With the teachers, I definitely understood because they've seen me like not involved with anybody. So
yeah, it was different with them.
To really be like involved with somebody for me, it was just kind of like. And then I did have somewhat of a relationship with certain teachers where they would ask me questions like, "Oh, so I see you too, yeah." And it's like I would make my small little comments like, "Yeah, sure, I wouldn't mind," but I never got into a lot of detail. So yeah, what do you want to say about that?
Nah, what I want to say was how we end up being together. It was like a script. I feel like it was a script because how it happened, it was like each moment or each event that was keep going after one after the other. And
felt like a movie for sure.
No, yeah, it was definitely a movie.
With different
levels
it
was
and climaxes and
yeah,
the characters
and then some comedy parts with us
so
hiding.
Dramatic, yeah, so dramatic. So dramatic. The thing that was really funny with our encounters was Like my mom had met her.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't even want to go into
Oh
that
my
much details,
God.
but it was very funny because, at the time I did tell her that we were friends, but later on, it became so obvious. It became so obvious.
I mean, she been knew since
Yeah.
I was the first girl you took to your house.
Yeah, because I'm not just going to take anybody
Yeah.
to my apartment. Like, who are you? I mean, you have to
You
be
have to be
someone
somewhat of importance.
substantial
Yeah.
to me in order for me to say, okay, we can chill here. Like, I would take you everywhere else. I would take you everywhere else. I'm just not taking you to my apartment. So, but yeah, she figured it out pretty fast.
Your
Just like
mom.
all parents.
All
yeah,
parents know.
And for me, I was okay with that. At first, I was kind of like, because she found out. She didn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily tell her she found out. And so, at first, I wasn't okay with it, but then afterwards, I started to realize that there's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, this is my first partner. I shouldn't be mad about it or whatever.
It's my first partner too.
Yeah. So for both of us, it was definitely a learning experience. I'm gonna say that because we made a lot of mistakes. We spoke to a lot of people that we probably shouldn't have about our issues, but
that's it happens.
yeah, when you get to a certain stage in your relationship, you realize that the two of you should definitely work things out as a unit. Not apart.
Right.
It should
right.
be
Together.
nice and close together. So dealing with certain problems and issues constantly, with other people, that could definitely ruin the relationship in a lot of different ways. Because people are kind of getting in the middle of both of us. Like, let's say someone was just standing right here between us. I mean, it doesn't look right. It doesn't make sense. So, to have other people closely related to our issues, problems, and everything going on with us, it doesn't make any sense. But besides us going through that learning experience, it definitely taught us a lot. I could say that I've grown a lot from that time, and that was a few years ago. So we've been together for
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. And it's been a journey, it's a roller coaster. But if you're willing to sacrifice parts of yourself, growing and decaying is kind of the process, learning about yourself. Because a relationship takes two to make. If you have problems and issues that you need to address that you're ignoring, you gotta address it. Because then it's gonna seep into the relationship.
Yeah. I was gonna say that seep within the relationship.
Exactly. So I feel like a relationship is one of the biggest components to a person growing as, the type of person that they want to be, the type of being that they want to be, and manifesting a version of themselves that they've never seen before. Because now you're not just going through life as you kind of have that mirror to tell you, hey, look, you do this a lot, why don't you do something different?
Yeah.
And a lot of us are not used to that. We're not used to someone saying, hey, I think you might be wrong with what you're doing.
Right, and the lower self don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that.
There's certain aspects of us who kind of say, nah, I got this, I know what I'm doing.
And that's the ego.
Yeah, exactly. But as soon as we realize that we're not always right, we are wrong in certain cases, and we have a lot to learn in a lot of different cases, then we also realize that, the best person that we are has yet to manifest itself, has yet to come into full fruition. So, yeah, that's kind of what I like to say about relationships. As you grow on that level,
It does.
psychologically, it can help you mentally grow into a new type of person that you never thought you would probably be. And that's just because, growth takes a level of you letting go as well. For you to let go of certain things, certain habits or whatever, you have to be willing to let that go.
You have to be aware in order to let that go.
Yeah.
And also take accountability for everything, your actions and all.
Right. Because without accountability, then you're right about everything,
Yeah.
and no one could tell you anything. And that's like one of the biggest reasons why I feel a lot of relationships fail is because people aren't taking enough accountability for their own actions. They play the victim a lot.
Yeah, man.
There might even be some like codependency going on, and if you're like really dependent and your partner being a specific type of way, but you're not doing the work for yourself, then that could also cause a lot of problems too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of like the relationship dynamic, I feel like there's a lot to learn, but the more that you go through life and mature as an adult and grow into your own sense of wisdom, then you'll find that it's not that hard to be loyal. It's not that hard to grow as a person. And it's not that hard to really learn the fact that you're not always right about whatever you think that you might be. Like there's just a lot of lessons to learn, and you have to be willing to accept that. That's a part of the accountability aspect. Like a part of me, ever since this relationship, would say that love is a responsibility, because
Yeah.
in order to love, like you can't just say, oh, I love something, but then treat it any type of way that you want.
Exactly. The opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah. Now you have a responsibility to uphold. Now you have to honor what you love. Now you have to be loyal to what you love. And if you're not constantly watering those plants, then who is? You know, like anybody at any time could come and try to water your plants. So does that mean that you're gonna be scared and, you know, like run away from the situation? Or like, are you gonna allow someone else to take the initiative to do something that you should already be doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fair to your partner, and it's not fair to you, because you got into a relationship in order to grow as a person and also help the other person grow too. But if that doesn't constantly happen, then what are you in the relationship for?
And there's a lot of people in relationships for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. So they might have a habit that you know, it gets accentuated every time they're together with this person, and the other person might be okay with it. Like, oh, let's just do this. And it's like, well, yeah, the other person doesn't tell you that you might have something that you're doing that's harming you.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot too. So it's just a lot, and I could go on for days about stuff like
We
this.
because it's a lot of topics. It's a lot of topics. You know,
Different
relationship is really broad. You have to like break it up
It's like an onion; it just keeps going.
with layers. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps going. And the deeper you go, the more you find, wow, there's so much more here, so much more.
And with us knowing that, that's what makes us last longer. Instead of loving his flowers, I love his roots. So if I love his roots, everything within that roots, whether it's the ego, the lower self, the higher self, whatever, I already accept all of those. And I'm planning, well, we continue to plan together to work on each other.
Yeah,
You
all
know?
aspects of yourself have to be grown, watered, and nurtured in a way where, like, there's no aspect of you that gets ignored.
Yeah.
Because if it ever gets ignored, then that means that there's something wrong there. There's like a level of accountability that's not there. So you have to address that. You have to know that it's there, and then you also need the awareness and the knowledge in order to fix that. So sometimes there's going to be issues where you're not going to be able to fix right away. But something that you could do is internally get your mind together, because there might be a certain point in time where now with this issue that was like looming over you, let's say that you do get over it, and you might not even be mentally ready or psychologically ready. You might feel like you're not prepared to face that. And so, like, with all these different layers that we were talking about, I think you can see why that it's very difficult in terms of constantly breaking yourself down and trying to fix, certain situations. But ultimately, like I was saying before, it becomes easier the more that you're willing, the more prepared that you are, the more sacrifices that you make within yourself, and also just as a
Because
person.
you're mentally prepared. You're mentally prepared.
Exactly. So I feel like that's all that I wanted to say in terms of the topic. Like, I could keep going, but I think
Video's already lengthy.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. And if you guys do want us to talk about things like this more, then just let us know, because I don't think we'll ever hesitate to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people dealing with their own sets of issues, and they might need like some sort of support in terms of getting through whatever they're going through. So yeah, I don't mind going through it again, letting people know.
Times Square for you.
Yeah. But other than that, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Nah.
So that's gonna be about it, guys.
That's about it, you guys. That's about it.
Hope y'all enjoyed. It was a good talk. I feel like some of you are probably here with us now, like obviously in spirit.
Of course.
But because I feel like there was someone out there who needed to hear something like this. That's why I kept going. But
no, don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop.
yeah.
Don't stop.
Yeah, so like I said, if there's any questions, concerns, comments, just let us know and we'll be able to address them as soon as possible. All right, guys, let us know.
Let us know.